Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to craft every piece of gear for the mid-budget and the Leaguestart version of the Corrupting Fever build according to Grimrose POBs. We went over every item and he made a spreadsheet as well. I'm going to link this in the description where he explains a lot about leveling, and there's also something about crafts. But yeah, I'm going to go over every piece of gear. Let's start on the wands. And on the wands, the most important parts is the base attack speed and the stat requirements. And as you can see, the highest attack speed per second on a wand is 1.5. And since the build doesn't have a lot of intelligence, we want to go for probably a carved wand. And you can also search in the market if there's anything like this. You can put an end on all physical spell skill gems. As you can see in the POB, if we de-level the Corrupting Fever by 1 level, it makes the damage go from 1,003,063 to 1.2 million. So 1 level is huge. It's a lot of damage. And then you put a count with an empty suffix or a crafted suffix. And you also want a higher base attack speed. And you can put also the maximum requirement on intelligence that your builds need. So for example, on this POB, on day 1, you should have around 118, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on how good rares you have. And you can also put a requirement here on intelligence, 118, and just search if there's any on the market. And as you can see, this might be pretty hard because not many wands have high attack speed with low requirement. So if you need to craft one yourself, you can go in game. And if you go to Nessa here, she sells you carved wands level 13. And if you put a level 13 wand on Craft of Exile with Jagged Fossil, if you spam Jagged Fossils, on average it's a 1e13. Or if you don't want to pay for around 26 chaos worth of fossils and resonators, maybe a little bit more in Leaguestart, you can also alteration spam. And on average, it's going to be 127 alterations, which on Leaguestart is around 10 to 15C, depending on the market value. Maybe it's a little bit less. Sometimes I see alterations going for 20 to 1. So it's going to be pretty cheap to make one. I'll show you with fossils. And once you're done getting +1 on the prefix, you can, for example, I got a prefix here. You might have to annul this because I think it's full of suffixes. No, it has a suffix open. So we go in our hideout and you just craft physical damage over time suffix, and your wand is pretty much done. If you don't want to pay, if you're like on solo self-found or something, you can do this method or the alteration spam as well. And you just craft physical damage over time, and in around, I don't know, 20, 30C, you get like a really good wand. What you can also do is if you lower the item level of the wand to level 3, you can go on a level 2 character and buy Driftwood wands. They have 0 int requirement and they have a 1.4 attack speed base, and it makes the total cost of the craft go from like 127 alterations to 66, which is way cheaper. And if you're doing this with fossils, it makes it go to 7, I think. So it's a lot cheaper to do on Driftwood wand. The only problem is that the attack speed is going to be 1.4 instead of 1.5. And let's go in the POB. Once you're done with your, I'm going to take them off so we can go to the next item. This is just a floor rare. You can literally just drop this in map, so we can skip over this. Same for the chests. You just want good armor on helmet, chest and boots, and life and res. On the boots, you also want move speed, and try to get as much armor as you can because the next patch armor is important. The scaling is really good. For the gloves, you want to craft, if you can, if possible, on an apothecary glove. And in the next patch, they will drop in Glennack cairns. And so if you start on this side of the Atlas, when you push, you'll probably drop a pair at least. And you can just spam an essence. If you check here in game, essences, I believe it's Delirium. It gives you socketed gems deal 3% more damage over time. I'm gonna show you in game with a random pair of gloves. Like a random rare pair of gloves. You just use one essence and you're done, and you just craft life as a prefix. As you can see here, we got suffix, socketed gems deal 3% more damage over time, and then you just go in your hideout, and if you don't have life, you just craft life, and you can just craft something else instead. We need that essence mod because corrupting fever will go on our gloves early game, and it gives you a big damage boost. Like if you removed it from the gloves, look at the damage go down. We lost like over 200k DPS. It needs to be on the gloves because it's a pseudo 5 link without needing the 5 link. On your chest, you're going to be using a 4 link, so it's really budget. And you're pretty much done. This can carry you through the whole early game. And for the amulet, you want to alteration spam the new mod, damage over time multiplier. And if you can see here in the manifesto, they're adding this new mod. We don't know exactly the weight of this mod, so we don't know how many alterations it will take. But since it doesn't have a tag, I think the best way to get this is alteration spamming, and it's probably like the most cost effective way. So also you want to craft on a turquoise amulet if it's possible. This does not need to be influenced, you just need the minimum level requirement for this mod. And you probably want to anoint Acrimony, as it gives you another 15% damage over time multiplier. And it's a clear black oil. This should cost you probably like around 20-30c, this anoint. But I think it's worth it, it's really good. And you just, once you get the mod, you just craft life and you're pretty much done. And for the first ring, you just want to go for any implicit of the resists that you need to just fix your res. If you have enough res on the other pieces of gear, you can try to use max HP ring that also drops in the same area in the Atlas. So you should probably drop one of these if you're starting on this side. Or if you're on Trade League, you can just buy one. It's probably going to be really cheap. And to get the damage over time multi, we have a new mod on Essences of Delirium. And now it gives you, instead of maximum doom, it gives damage over time multiplier up to 15%. So you're just gonna use one Essence of Delirium on the ring and then just craft life. And you're just gonna be done. If it has extra stats like some res, it's gonna be nice, but you don't really need it. You can cap your res with the rest of the gear like chest, helmet, and boots. And for your second ring, you want a resist implicit warlord ring, and you are trying to get vulnerability on hit. This has a caster tag, so we can either use Harvest Reforges, which is a 1 in 4. If we do Harvest Reforge caster, 1, we got flammability, 2, 3, 4, we got vulnerability, it's a 1 in 4. We got really lucky here, we got good life. And in this case, we would just craft attributes. But you can also, if you didn't have life, you could also craft life, depending on what you need on the build. You can craft the attributes on some other piece of gear. It doesn't need to be on this specific one. And for the item level, I recommend level 80. But if you really can't find the level 81, you can also use a 75. If you don't have Harvest and you're lazy and you just want to use fossils, you can use Etheric Fossils as well. It's a 1 in 9 to hit the tier 2 vulnerability on a level 80 ring. Don't use Etheric Fossils on level 75 as it almost doubles the cost. And for the next item, Stygian Vise is just life and res, some attributes. You can just use some essences on this, probably like resist essences, or you can use pristine fossils. It's really easy to craft. Or you can even scour alch this. As the item level, any item level should be fine. Anything close to 80, if you can, 84. You don't need like 86 like other builds that need like elemental damage with attacks and stuff. Just try to get as high level as possible. It doesn't really matter too much. For the jewel, you can't really do much about this jewel. you're probably forced to buy it. But even if you can't find it, it only gives you about 2.5% more damage when you're full build. It doesn't make a lot of difference. It's only like a 5% increased damage over time taken on the mobs. So you can just skip this and just get life and some attack speed maybe to make the build feel good. The flasks are really easy to roll. It's just alterations. And I don't think I have to go over this. And for the jewels, all of the normal jewels are actually really, really easy to craft. And I'm going to show you here. If you go in jewels and we go for crimson and we spam jagged and we want to go for physical damage over time, increase global physical damage and physical damage over time, they're buffing this mod to 7%, I think, next league. And on average, it takes 16 jagged fossils. So just get any random crimson jewel from the floor. The item level doesn't do anything. Just get any random crimson jewel from the floor while you're leveling and just spam jagged fossils. You can do some delve or just buy them. This should be cheap. They're really common fossils, jagged. And yeah, this is really easy. And for the large cluster, you just want an 8 passive physical with any combination of 2 notables. The only notable that you don't really want is Grim Oath because it doesn't do anything for the build. Everything else is fine. There's like 6 different ones that you can use. And the best way to get them is either use jagged fossils. And for example, we just used one and we got 1 prefix, 1 suffix that are usable. We can just skip this. But you can also use Reforge physical. And we're still going for any 2 or 3 passives. We got lucky, we got 3. And there are 3 good ones as well. Yeah, as long as it's not Grim Oath in your 2 main notables, it should be fine. And everything else is fine. For the medium cluster, you want generic damage over time cluster, medium. You could use a physical one as well, but early game, it's easier to craft on a generic one. And we're just going to be using Reforged Life or Reforged Chaos or Aberrant Fossils or Pristine Fossils, up to you. And I'm going to show you with Aberrant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We already got a double mod. And here we can use everything but Wasting Affliction and Hemorrhage. These are the only 2 that we're not using. We have 7 different notables that we can use. So in this case, we're already done. This is probably good. Reinvigoration, via Reinvigoration and Student of Decay. Student of Decay is chaos damage with damage over time. And via Reinvigoration is damage over time. And some yes, which we don't really care about. We only care about the damage over time. But yeah, this is also really easy. You can also use Reforged Chaos. We got 2 again. You can do Reforged Life. We got 2 again. There's a lot of different things that you can do. It's really cheap. It's really easy. The item level for both the large and the medium is fine at level 50 or above. Anything above level 50 is fine. You can find this in the campaign while you're leveling when you find like your first delirium, so it's really cheap. And for the mid-budget version of the build, you're going to be a ready tornado shot with a 6-link bow and a 6-link chest. And I already made a video on the bow on how to craft it. And if you can see here, you're going to use your Claire skill, which is Tornado Shot, on your chest. And you're going to have Corrupting Fever on your bow because it gets scaled by the plus levels that you get on the bow. So I already made a video on the bow, so you can go check that out if you want. And on the quiver, you want to get the generic mod that is Frenzy Charge when you hit a unique enemy. There's also a mod in the bench that gives you frenzies on crit, but since this build doesn't crit much, you actually need this mod to be able to sustain frenzy charges. And you also want the projectile speed. It's not really mandatory to have the projectile speed, but it makes the clear so much better because you already have a delay on your damage because it's at damage over time. You want the projectiles to travel fast so that you can actually hit the mobs really quick. So they start degening. And You also need accuracy, so you're gonna be crafting on a 2-point arrow quiver, and we want to craft on an elder base because we need this mod, and we want to start by alteration spamming the chance to gain a frenzy charge when you hit a rare or unique enemy. I actually didn't add the influence, so create new item, offhand quiver, and I want elder influence. This should be cheap. Not many people use this quiver, and you just want to alteration spam until you hit this mod, which is a suffix frenzy. And once you have this, you want to, if you have another prefix, let's say you have a prefix here that you don't want it, you can imprint and annul, and you can always bring it back. Or if you don't want to spend money on imprints, you can just straight up annul it, and if you get unlucky, you'll just spend another 200 alterations rolling the quiver. Whenever you have the one mod quiver like this ready, you go on your bench and you craft suffixes cannot be changed, and we're going to reforge speed or reforge plus speed, it doesn't really matter too much, and we're gonna aim for a high tier of projectile speed. The item level on the quiver is anything above 75. I recommend level 82 though, so you can get an extra roll of projectile speed. It makes it easier to roll. And once you have the blue base like this, they buffed harvest, and basically now the reforges work on magic items, like blue items, white items, and yellow items. So you don't need different reforges for everything. Just if you find a speed plot, you're gonna be able to craft on this. And before you harvest craft, you always want to imprint at this state with the suffix cannot be changed and the influence mod that you want. This is the easiest way to craft this. If you try other ways, it's like extremely expensive. This is like a few X and you're done. So you just want to reforge speed with the base imprinted as this state with the suffix cannot be changed and the mod, because you can always bring it back and you don't have to recraft this every time. You can just use one imprint instead, which is way cheaper than spending 2 exalts every time. And if you get projectile speed, it's nice. I would keep anything above T2 or T1 probably. Attack speed is nice as well. It's not mandatory because you have good enough attack speed, but if you have it, it's really nice. And if you get it on the first try like this, it shouldn't take too many, probably like 3 or 4 maximum, probably like 3. So it's 2 exalts plus 3 imprint total. And whenever you have a good amount of projectile speed, you just go on your bench and craft life prefix, and you're pretty much done. Maybe get a better roll, like 50 something, like close to 55. And you're pretty much done. The quiver's done. It's actually really easy, only a few X. For the helmet and boots, they're really easy to craft. They're just life and res. Nothing special about them. And about the gloves, it's the same. It's just life and res with crafted damage. These are really easy as well. You can probably just use a resist essence or a life essence to get these. Just make sure you are crafting on an apothecary gloves. It's some extra damage. It drops in this zone again. But yeah, the gloves are also easy. Now the chest is a little different. You want a Redeemer influence chest with at least level 80, and you also probably need a 6 link, and we're gonna be using bound fossils because it has an aura tag, and bound work on aura and minion. So on the base, I would probably pick anything above Crusader and above, just so we have a high amount of armor. Keep in mind the next league, we will have like a implicit modifier of armor, or like any implicit on gear that can be from 0 to 20% increased. So for example, a golden plate could be better than a Crusader plate if this is max rolled and this is minimum rolled. So just look for like anything above 700 armor should be fine. I'm just gonna pick this for an example, and I'm gonna do Redeemer and at least level 80, and you proceed. And we're just gonna spam bound fossils if you want, you can also spam pristine at the same time. It lowers the average tries to 8 from 9, and it also gives you a pretty good chance of getting life. The only downside of using pristine is that it will remove all of the hybrid tag mods, all of the defense tag mods. So it's kind of up to you if you want a higher chance of getting life, or if you want more chance of getting some defenses and life at the same time. This also increases the cost of the craft because you have to use a 2-socket resonator and another extra fossil. So you're probably just better off spamming just bound 1-socket fossils. And you just want to keep going until you hit a T1 increased effect of your auras. In this case, we got kind of lucky because we got a pretty good life. It's 39 plus 33. And we have an open prefix. You can just go in your bench and craft whatever you want. Usually you would have open prefix and you just craft the bench life. So we go in the bench and we probably just craft flat armor. So it goes over 1,000. It's pretty good. You can get a better roll if you want. And yeah, the armor is really easy. Make sure it's 6-linked because your skill at this point will require a 6-link on your chest, because Tornado Shot wants GMP, chain, faster prods to make the build feel really good. And also life gain on it for sustain. But yeah, make sure you have a 6-link on your chest at this point of the game. For your amulet, this is probably the last item that we need to discuss. Everything else is pretty easy and straightforward. And you want to go for a level 82 turquoise amulet with Hunter influence. You need turquoise amulet because of the dex and int requirement they need on the build. And you need a +1 from the Hunter influence on the prefix. And you need to craft the skills cost no mana or life while focused, because your cost of corrupting fever, once you put it on the bow and you have it on a 6-link, is going to be pretty high. Right now it's like 5,000. With all of the gear on, it's probably going to be more. And basically, you need this. You use the focus, so you don't have a cost to your skills, and then you just use your corrupting fever, and you're pretty much done for the whole map. So to craft this, you probably want to alteration spam the +1 level of all strength skill gems, but next patch, we might be able to do something else. Since we're getting new fossils, we might be able to use the attribute fossils to get this. So it will make the weight from 200 to 2,000. So it's probably more cost efficient next league to just spam a few of those attribute fossils. Make sure you check it on POB, on Craft of Exile, before you actually craft it. We don't have the info for at the moment, but next league we will be able to. And so you just alteration spam for this, and then you regal and you craft the suffix, and you're pretty much done. And you have like your mid-game amulet. I'm gonna go quickly over the rest of the gear. We already went over this in the budget version. The Stygian Vice is the same as before, just life and res. The flasks are just alteration spamming. These are unique, we can't craft this. You have to buy this. You have to buy this as well. And the cluster jewels is the same way. You're probably gonna try to go for a 3 passives now instead of 2. So you can save some points. So it's gonna take a bunch of physical reforges on the large. On the medium is the same as before. If you want, you can transition into phys damage over time multiplier mediums eventually, but I think at this point you're still fine with the generic ones. And if you want to get tankier and get some life on the jewels, you probably have to buy these. I don't recommend crafting them as they might be kind of hard. And you're pretty much done. The gear is really simple. The only items to craft are the bow, which is probably like 12x. The quiver is probably going to be costing you like 4. And the chest is going to cost you probably like 4 or 5. Everything else is really easy. You should have this from before when you did the early version of the build, when you're like in day 1 gear, and everything else is just life and res. These gloves will cost you probably like 50C maximum if you have the base yourself, and everything is pretty cheap. Helmet, boots are just life and res, and the uniques are gonna cost you a little bit, but not too much. Probably this one is gonna cost you a few exalt, and Test of 8 probably like 40-50 chaos to get some defenses. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.